we came into the COVID-19, my mindset was there's opportunity in all this. So now being 20 years later, I'm always thinking, to your point, you get up the next day and you think about, being positive in this. And I think you look at, I've really have learned over 20 years being an entrepreneur that every situation there's an opportunity depending on how you look at it. So whether it's COVID-19, it's the .com boom for me, or it was, and again, I think sports taught you all that, right? Like there's a diversity piece, and how do you handle adversity and how do you look at adversity is such an important part for an entrepreneur's business owner, CEO, is, if you even think for a second the glass is half full, you're in trouble, right? You've got to attack it with reckless abandon. And
it's interesting is during COVID, you got to figure out how do I get to the other side?
Right.
How do I keep the people that I have? It's temporary.
Right.
And temporary could be longer temporary.
Right, it could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years, who knows, right?
But if you keep the mindset that it's temporary, I got to get to the other side. I believe that you're going to learn something from this experience now that you'll keep.
Oh yeah.
So that you'll have to do something a different way. You'll communicate a different way. You'll do all kinds of stuff. And then you'll realize, hey, that's a pretty good way of doing business. That's a pretty good way of communicating to the rest of, whether it's Zoom calls, become the norm when it's all over, or you say, well, we really value the people-to-people contact.
Right.
Or is there a hybrid in there?
I would not be investing in commercial real estate right now. That's for sure. Office buildings, right? So
that's true.
And that's kind of where we have buildings across the country, and it's one of the things that we saw. It's like, okay, we adjust from this, and and it's funny. And this is a great example of, we talked about hiring people around here smarter than you, and I have a phenomenal team at Smartlink. Jason Campbell, my COO, came over from T-Mobile, super bright guys, unbelievable. And about 5 years ago, he was like, we got to start working remotely. And I'm totally against this. I'm old school, right? Like if you're not in the office and I can't run down you and get a hold of you and talk to you, and I know some of my employees are back there, they're laughing right now. So, but and Jason really pushed me on this. And then I'm like, man, he's like, the times have changed, BK, you got to get with it, right? If we want these millennials coming in, they want to work remotely, they're still productive. He's pulling all these reports for me and showing me this. So I gave him the blessing about 5 years ago to start doing that. So we were probably about 60% remote, 40% in office when COVID hit. Now we're 100% out. Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, that was a pretty good idea 5 years ago. I'm glad you came up with that, right? Like, and it's the ability to listen to. And 15 years ago, we talked about stubbornness on the way up, right? If he would have brought that to me 15 years ago, it wouldn't have happened. There's no way. And I learned over time too, when you leading and being a business owner, and I'm sure you've had the same over the last 25 years, and you're in the baseball business of minor league, and you shifted to the youth teams, and you've adjusted and kind of found a place to where you're really happy with what you're doing. You got great people around you, it makes your life a lot easier, and you're giving back to the community, which is very rewarding. And I think that's very similar to what we do at Smartlink. And I think that's the other thing that COVID's really done, which we were already very big into, giving back to communities across the country and working with United Way. Intermountain Medical Center here locally, I've always done a lot with. I think you know that. And your foundation, I will see locally, we support. We got a call from Intermountain Medical Center, and it was I'll give you a connection from an employee when you really feel like you got a good culture. So I'm circling all the way back to this culture thing. So this COVID happens, and Lisa gets a call from the hospital and they say, look, is there any way BK would be interested in donating iPads or some type of system, because you can't have members in here and there's people are sick in the hospital. This is back April when it's crashing down, right? And they said, absolutely, I'm sure he does. I'll get a hold of him today and see what he wants to do, right? So Lisa come and said, how many are you looking for? She said, well, they're trying to raise 50 and they'd like to get like 10 from us. So I said, Lisa, go buy 50 iPads tomorrow, right? And I was like, and she gave me the whole story, and the bottom line was, the story was, they were given to the patients inside. They said they could talk to their families and FaceTime them, because they had no way to see their loved ones that maybe wasn't even with COVID. It could have been heart attack, whatever. They couldn't get in the hospital. The interesting one is, we do all this. About a month later, I get this email from an employee. It says, I want you to know, blown away that I was able to talk to my grandmother and see her. I was more impressed that it was my company that made it happen. So she was like, it was this very moment where it was like, you don't think about it that way, but that culture of that employee, and that felt, and so for her to feel part of that.
Oh, for sure. So a play on words is that is a different sort of Smartlink.
Yeah.
that you were able to create, but that's a fantastic story.